I'm driving up near Quilcene, Washington, heading to Ocean Shores, Washington. And I got to thinking about a subject that I thought, well, while I take this drive, maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. Just to give you a little background, the history of my life. My father had a lot of antisocial traits. My real father, my stepfather, did not, but my real father did. When he was very young, he was in trouble with the law at different times. He ended up being quite a successful businessman at certain points in his life, but his life was a difficult life. It was had a lot of trouble in his life, which is why our family ended up with a stepfather, a different family. He definitely had a lot of antisocial traits. He was also diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 1966 when I was very young. He had been through World War II, served on the USS Pennsylvania, through the Philippines and so forth, and his family pretty much believed that war is what caused much of his traumatic behavior in his life, and definitely was probably behind the paranoid schizophrenia. He had basically a post-traumatic syndrome at the highest level. But he definitely also had antisocial traits. And I was very close to him, loved him very deeply throughout his entire life. He died at the age of 91. So he and I were very close. But throughout all this experience, I learned a great deal about different behaviors, and I studied it a lot. I had to live with my father for a time when I was in my 40s, and so I began studying antisocial behavior. I began studying a lot of paranoid schizophrenia, things like that, to help me cope, survive with it. But one of the things that there are a couple of traits. There's a book that I would highly recommend. It's called Safe People. I'm not sure who the author is exactly. I read it many years ago. But I would highly recommend that book, Safe People. I think there are a couple of ministers who wrote this book. But I've had experiences throughout my life with unsafe people. And interestingly enough, they all seem to carry the same traits, very similar traits. I wouldn't diagnose them, I wouldn't attempt to diagnose them, but I do know they're not safe. I can recognize it pretty quickly because of my background. And I've had other experiences in life that brought this about, that were pretty traumatic. And so I thought I'd bring out about a few traits that I know of, that I'm very well aware of, and some of the things the book highlights. Probably one of the first things the book highlights is that often a person who will be unsafe in the future is a person often who wants really quick attachments. They want a quick attachment with you. I'm reminded of a personality that wants quickly to get married, quickly. Often with that somebody who wants to get married really quickly. Not always. Sometimes it's just love at first sight. It is what it is. But somebody who you're not there and the other person is there, and it's really quick, probably you want to be really aware of that, because often that comes with a lot of self-interest, self-serving purposes, and what they tend to be is often very controlling, because they will try to manipulate you into marriage. Many times, so that's one of the things to watch out for, whether it be a male-female relationship or just a friendship. Any of those, when they want a really quick attachment, watch out. It reminds me of a cousin that I had. I had not seen this cousin since I was so young I didn't even remember who he was. And he ended up getting into our family life when I was in my 40s. And first time I spoke with him on the phone, and he's states away, many states away from me. One of the first thing he said after the phone call, at the end of the phone call, it was a brief phone call. Hello, how are you? Love you, Raj. And I said, well, I thought, well, that was nice. Said, love you too. I don't even know who you are, but thank you. And come to find out, as he came into our life, on a much more personal level, he was incredibly controlling person. And in fact, he was manipulating his way into our lives. That's what he was doing. And it ended up just being a terrible situation. And I can give several examples just in my own experience of people like that who ended up being incredibly controlling. And Dad was like this. When my dad came off World War II, off the ship, he sees my mother and was convinced that he had dreamt of her on the ship and was absolutely determined to marry this woman, and wouldn't stop, even against her own parents' wishes. She gave in. She was charmed by him. And boy, it was 20 years of hell. Not only for her, but many years of hell for our family. Really, really bad. So, the other thing that these people often do, or you'll find, they're very generous. Very generous when you first meet them. I mean, incredibly generous. It's like, whoa, really? Well, thank you, for your generosity. I mean, they will buy you things, they will give you things. My dad would go out, new people he met, insisted on buying the entire round of food for everybody, this is a very common trait. They want to control you through giving, and I've known several people like this. And so that's one of the things you watch for, is they're very, very generous. Watch out, because often with that generosity comes a lot of control. And in whether it's conscious or subconscious on their part, the two go together very often. And I've seen it many, many times in many people, not only in my own life, but in the lives of others who've had to deal with this. Sisters and brothers and friends and various people. So they're often very giving at the very beginning. The other thing that you have to watch for and be aware of is they will never take responsibility for what they do. They will very seldom, if ever, say that apologize or say they're sorry. If they do, it's a feigned sorry. Usually it's very brief, I'm sorry, it's something like that, but it's not really an apology. And doesn't matter what they do, they're not going to accept responsibility for it. Ever. It's always pretty much your problem. You have the problem. You're misunderstanding me. You are misunderstanding what I'm saying. You're misunderstanding what I'm doing. And so you will feel guilt. And you'll feel a lot of it. And you will often go back to them and apologize. And find yourself apologizing and feeling badly. And the reason you do is because you have a conscience. But they often don't really have a whole lot of conscience. They are basically, for the most part, quite self-serving. And so it's varying degrees. I mean, some are really, really, really bad, and some are not as bad as others, but those are things to watch for, If they never say they're sorry, never apologize, never take responsibility, watch out. Watch out. The other thing that they'll often do is put you down, and it can be very subtle ways of putting you down. You don't even quite know it. They're so good at it that it comes in subtle forms. And then if you address them about it, my dad used to say, he would say, I'm just teasing, Roger, just teasing. Don't take it so personally, Roger, I'm just teasing. And he did this with my mother all the time as well when we were young. And watch out, when somebody says, oh, it was just teasing, but it hurt you. It hurt, it was a very hurtful thing they said. Subtle. Makes you feel low, small. Watch out for that. They're not teasing. No matter how much they say they're teasing, what they're doing is hiding from the fact that they just insulted you. That's what they're doing. They're hiding. You have to realize that most everything they do is in self-interest. And the root behind this, generally, from my experience, is an incredibly deep-rooted insecurity. Very, very, very deeply insecure. And so, I don't hate these people. It's difficult for me to be around it. But, and I try to avoid it. I mean, I stay as far away as I can from it. But one of the things that's difficult to make it difficult to stay away from them is so they can be so incredibly charming. I mean, they just think you're the greatest person in the world. But then these traits come out, and in reality they may think you're a great person, but the traits take away from your ability to have any self-worth and your ability to think for yourself. They're very controlling, so they will often think for you, try to care for you, but make sure that you're all right. But many times that's just because of their own self-interest. But it's not entirely. They can have real compassion. They can have feelings of compassion for you. But there's so much junk in there mixed with it. It isn't worth it. Because they're just not safe people. They're just not safe to be around. So I make it my policy is, if I find myself around an unsafe person, I do my best to stay as much away from that person as possible. I make them, they are an acquaintance to me. They are not a friend. I don't think of them as a friend because I can't trust them. I think of them as an acquaintance, and that's it. Because we have to live in this world, kind of like the scripture says, you're in the world but not of it. You are in the world with these people, but you don't have to be of them. You don't have to become entwined in their web, in their life, in their world. You don't have to become a part of their world. And they may make you feel guilty for not doing that as well, by the way. And you need to just step away and think of it in these terms. They are an acquaintance. That's it. That means I limit my time around them. I don't spend much time around them. I don't go out to dinner with them. I don't go out and have fun with them. I don't do enjoyable things with them. My father, because I loved him, I made it my policy was 2 hours max with my father twice a week, and that was it. And he would make me feel guilty. He'd say, when are you going to come see me? You know, gee, Roger, it's nice to see you again. He would always make snide remarks about it. My kids never come and see me. Well, you know, I would just remain quiet and love you, Dad. It's great to see you again. That was it. But you wouldn't find me going on a long trip with him, I'll tell you. No way. I ran out of room on my camera, but I just wanted to finish up with what I was saying. So, a couple of other things to bear in mind is these people who are like this, they will, when it's time to let you go, they will drop you like a hot potato. But if they don't want to let you go, they will call you for years and years to come, trying to get a hold of you if you are out of that friendship or relationship. But when the time comes that they don't want a relationship with you or a friendship with you, they'll drop you like a hot potato. And so, in the end, either way, it will not turn out good with controlling people like this, unsafe people. The best thing that you can do is keep a cool distance, a safe distance. And just to clarify and kind of qualify some things, it isn't to say that all generous people are unsafe. There are a lot of generous people in this world. But the kind of generosity I'm talking about is upon your first meeting, they are hooking you in with generosity. And then combined with the other traits, when you begin to see these other traits combined with that, you've got a problem. And you want to get away from it. It's not healthy. It's not safe. It's not good for us to be in that environment. You know, we only have this one life that we live. And there's no reason to spend our entire life feeling guilty, feeling low self-esteem, all because someone else is making us feel that way. It's not fair to you. And you deserve to be fair to yourself. We all deserve to be fair to ourselves. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Thanks for watching our channel. Bye-bye.